Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
America, our beautiful, wonderful land, is in a lot of trouble right now. Our values, Constitution, and our laws are under siege by an evil, sinister, deadly left. We must be ready to fight, and we have to win. America hangs in the balance. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America on this Wednesday, June the 10th. Good morning, everybody. We need some patriots to get up and call in the pledge. Good morning. And a good morning to you on this Wednesday, June the 10th. Zeb Bell, that's me, and the program Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with a safe, clean environment and the best in tires, along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, let's go to the telephone line and have a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Randy, I appreciate it, buddy, and I know you're going to call back in a little bit. We got a lot of stories to cover this morning. Thank you very, very much for doing the pledge. Appreciate it. Let's go to the weather forecast right now, and I stepped outside a little bit ago and sat on the porch for a few minutes meditating, and wow, what a beautiful morning. K&R Rental brings us the weather. Roger and the crew at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn, right there, smack dab on the Burley-Paul Highway. You can't miss them. They've got everything for you to work in your garden or help work on your lawn or anything you need to do to upgrade and make your property look really nice. All the rototillers, they've got everything. Water lines, it's all there at K&R Rental. Number to call, 678-3122. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We'll be warming up for the next couple of days and cooling off by the weekend. Here's a look at your weather forecast. For today, we are expecting sunny skies, a little bit of a breeze, and a high of 78. Tonight, beautifully clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 87. Winds are going to be picking up out of the east-northeast at about 10 miles an hour. Winds could gust as high as 23 miles an hour by Thursday night. Partly cloudy skies with a low of 56. Friday, partly sunny and 90. More clouds rolling in for Friday night with a low of 56. Then by Saturday, partly sunny skies, 74. By Sunday, mostly sunny, 68. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Range.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Don't forget our friends, and they are our friends, and they do a great job for you, providing the best of tools and equipment for both long and short-term rental. And that's, of course, K&R Rental. Roger and the gang over there at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn, 678-3122. Caller, I'll be there momentarily. Stand by. Don't forget to our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric. My goodness, they're there early in the morning at 7:30. Open the doors and say, we're here ready to serve you with all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. You know, they've been doing that for almost 7 decades with the best of people, most knowledgeable, and ready to help you at Ramsey Heating and Electric. 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call, 678-0459. Don't forget, that's where they provide warm winters and cool summers at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Caller, good morning to you.
And a good morning to you too, Zeb Bell. You know, George Floyd is not a hero. He never was, and he never will be in my eyes. He was a doggone criminal, and why don't we treat him as such?
Well, okay. Let's back up to the get-go on this. Number one, the death that he suffered was inexcusably wrong, okay? Let's just call it like it is. It was a complete overreaction and continuation of a wrongdoing by a police officer, and all the people involved need to be punished and punished severely. But your point about George Floyd, I took it upon myself, and my lovely wife and I pulled up some information about George Floyd, and I'll share this with you folks. He was released from prison in Houston, Texas in 2014 for aggravated robbery, and then he was arrested for passing counterfeit $20 bills. He had a drug problem with fentanyl and methamphetamines. He had a decade-old criminal history, went to jail at least 5 times, was involved in a home invasion where he pointed a gun at a woman and was sentenced to 10 months in state jail down in Texas for possession of cocaine. You want me to go on? This is not a person where you can really look to the skies and say, St. Floyd.
Well, you certainly have brought things to light, things that I didn't know, and I appreciate that very much. But what about somebody, a soldier that is killed in Afghanistan, and he comes to the United States? I mean, they ship his body back here. We are really, really sorry about that. But that guy's a hero, not George Floyd.
Well, the point,
criminal.
The point I want to make right there with you, and I appreciate this very much, is that the left yesterday, and I know I'm going to get vilified for what I'm about to say. I know that, but it just goes with the territory. I've said it before, but they excerpt out what I say. The killing of this man was apprehensible, and the police need to be punished. But not all police. And I am sick and tired of the loony bins that are going around the country, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and demanding that there's a defund and disbandment of police. This is insanity, and it has to stop. But giving this man a national on most of the network's funeral, akin to what happens when we lose a president or other important VIP, that was absolutely out of place.
Yes, and the idea we have to have tit for tat on how many employees you have and what color they need to be and everything. You know, we have very few black people in our area, and one reason why is they don't like it where it's cold. What's wrong with that?
I don't even, Keith, I'm going to interrupt you. Keith, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm not going to go into a colorization of America. I don't believe in that. I have a lot, and I'm going to be very, very careful about how I choose my words here. I want you to understand. I have a lot of black friends that have been involved in sports, including pro football, pro basketball, pro baseball, and pro rodeo that I am very close to and have been over the years. I do not look at their skin color to be rewarded with my friendship. We have been friends regardless of skin color, and I'm not going to go into a colorization of America. What's going on in this country with the colorization of America is caused by the people like Sheila Jackson Lee and supposedly Al Sharpton that calls himself a reverend. Those are the people that are stirring the pot.
Okay, let's take one step further. We've had a lot of heroes in our time, but how many heroes have you seen with a funeral that lasts 3 hours and a procession that is 10 miles long?
Well, then my point is, you just missed my point a minute ago, though, Keith, my dear friend. I said that they have elevated this man's passing and the funeral into not only a political ploy, but they also awarded him the gratuitousness of, you, if you will, as the passing of the same as a president or a head of state. I thought that was very, very poorly done.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. You have made the exact point that I think needs to be made. If you have really done something to excel in America or something, you probably need to be recognized for it. This man was a criminal. Let's leave it at that.
Keith, appreciate your call and your comments. God bless you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Caller number 2, I'm going to ask you to just stay there for 60 seconds. I'll be right there. I want to remind you about the community auction that's going on this Saturday at 11 o'clock at the Twin Falls County Fairgrounds in Filer. It's a community auction managed by the Bennett Boys Auction Service. If you want to consign like cars, pickups, trailers, ATVs, shop tools, farm items, lawn and garden items, be sure and call my buddy Joe Bennett at 539-0111. Bennett Boys Auction Service, big sale, Twin Falls County Fairgrounds, this Saturday at 11 o'clock. Don't you miss it. Bennett Boys Auction Service, no sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys, they sell them all. And Dino's Septic Service. Hello, everybody over to Dino's. Yeah, beautiful day in the neighborhood, and they're going to be out there doing the job that you and I do not want to do. We don't want to be out there pumping a septic tank. We don't want to be out there handling all that liquid waste removal or sewer and sink drain lines cleaned. Oh, no. They do it, and they do it with a smile on their face. Fast, fair, friendly service, 436-6526 or 678-1638. Believe me, they are good, they are friendly, they are knowledgeable. Dino's Septic Service with the big truck that says smells cargo on the way. Caller, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. Many of these people, this kind of goes along with what you're just talking about. Many of the people out there that are calling for defunding defunding of the police because of what happened are politicians who have 24-hour protection of their property and their lives and everything else. And the rest of us, because of what's gone on, we're at the mercy of anybody that wants to attack us on the streets or in our homes.
Absolutely. Tony, I made the remarks in the opening of the show that we're in trouble. You're a gentleman that has been a friend, you and your lovely wife, Mary, of Deanne and myself for quite some time. And I feel very comfortable in talking to you about politics when we're off the radio and everything else. But, Tony, in your lifetime, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Have you ever seen America in your lifetime hanging by a thread like it is right now, where it could fall to the left and evil that's out there today?
No, I haven't. In my service time, I've been into Saigon and Hanoi and a few other countries where they were politically ready to collapse. And my feelings are, right now, today, we're on the verge of doing that. And what's going on now is many people out there want us to have fear in our hearts of gangs like Antifa. And this is what's happening. They want to, the American people are supposed to be fearful of the people that want to bring our country down to our knees.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen, because there's a lot of us out there that I'm going to put up with the bull. that's going on.
I hope you're so right. And I said in the opening remarks, we have to fight back and we have to win. Tony, God bless you and Mary. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Zeb.
You bet, buddy. Thank you. I'm concerned. The news, as it's presented, and you have to take a lot of it with a grain of salt, is absolutely devastating and a condemnation of America and our Constitution and our laws. I'm very concerned. Caller, stand by. I'll be right there. I want to tell you, everybody, about Doug's alternator and starter repair. It is for sale. Underline those last two words, for sale, at 635 21st Street in Hayburn. My old buddy Doug Martin has a great business opportunity for you. He's selling the business, and he will train the buyer of the business of rebuilding starters, alternators, etc. And I guarantee you, you better call him, because this is a great opportunity with a turnkey business operation. It's ready. Just go there and go to work. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Hayburn, 878-4991. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. Hey, the other day I stumbled across you, and she was making her comments about the whole situation, what's happening. And I will summarize it because hers went about 18 minutes.
Ma'am, just a minute, ma'am, just a second. Your cell phone is really cutting out. I don't know if you're moving your the mouthpiece on the phone or what, but hold it extremely still. Do not move, because you are cutting out. Please, try that again.
Okay. Is this better? I moved to a different part of the house.
Okay, good.
So anyway, she made comments. I'll summarize them because hers was about 18 minutes. Like I said, is a beautiful young black lady, and she's very frustrated at this whole situation. She started out saying how upset she was about the way the police had handled this situation with this man. And she went on several times, saying how that was wrong, that they didn't handle it right, they didn't handle it correctly. But then she went on to say, this guy is no hero. She said, he's a thug. Basically, as she said, he'd been in and out of prison for serious things. I think she said 7 times. There's one time he had broken into a woman's home, put a gun to her pregnant belly, demanded all of her goods that she had of any worth, and she didn't have anything. And so then when she told him she didn't have anything and she was scared to death, he gave the gun to another man, told her to hold her at bay while he searched the house and found whatever he could find. And by the way, she was a black woman. And she goes on to say that, yes, there may have been a window of time that he hadn't been caught doing anything, but she said, he wasn't doing right. His eyes were glassy. There was a reason the police was called, for them to come and take charge of the situation. She says, why is it, and she's black, she says, why is it the black people are the only race that will make heroes, and instead of saying that this is a thug?
Absolutely.
She's so mad about it. She's so mad that they're going on raving and raving about what a wonderful person this guy was. He's not wonderful. He's a thug. He should have got all this praise and stuff. Did this situation, was that wrong, that the way they handled it and choked him for, 9 minutes or something? Yeah, that was totally wrong. But that doesn't put aside that this guy was no hero.
Absolutely.
I just thought it was very interesting. If anyone ever stumbles across it, takes a few minutes, because it is long, and listen to her. She was very eloquent in her words.
Absolutely. And we commented a few minutes ago, probably before you tuned in this morning, about George Floyd's checkered past with criminals and his falling on the wrong side of the law. I really appreciate your call. You did that very well, and I'm so glad the cell phone was corrected. Thank you, and please call me back again. I appreciate that.
Anything about his funeral or anything, they talk about when he was in school and he had athletic type things, and then they talk about the very end. Most people, when you have a funeral, you talk about your life. They didn't mention nothing about the in-between part.
Amen. Thank you so much for your call this morning. God bless you. Thanks.
Goodbye.
That lady's spot on. I watched some of that funeral yesterday, and my wife and I both looked at each other, and I said, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. The black retired police captain that died by the looters and the rioters protecting his friend's pawn shop from being looted, he died. They killed him. And where was the funeral on television for this hero? There was none. And nobody mentions him hardly at all. And yesterday, Sheila Jackson Lee, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, that is a left-wing nut, she was asked at the funeral, and this is worthy of telling you this, if you didn't see it. The person that was coordinating the funeral and the way the procession and everything was going to be handled and the people that were going to speak, etc., got up to the podium and said, please keep your remarks about George Floyd to 2 minutes so everybody can have a fair shot and we'll have time to get to the cemetery. Sheila Jackson Lee got up after that, right after that. And she went on and on and on for almost 15 minutes, railing about the greatness of Democrats. This is insane. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, every Monday at 8:30, we give away a dozen cookies from Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 East Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness, what a great place to go eat. Great restaurant, great bakery. They can make everything over there. All the pies and the cakes and everything you'd love to have is right there at Sophie's Chatterbox on the square in Rupert, 436-0354. Don't forget. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. There's some questions that need to be asked that I've never heard anybody ask. One is, why was he interacting with the police department?
Yeah, I was just having another note called in by my wife, so go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry. I just had my attention split right down the middle. I apologize.
Well, you better pay attention to her than me. 'Cause
you got that right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But why was he having an interaction with the police? Was he doing something illegal?
Yeah, there was the supposed pickup at that time, and I'll open the door to be corrected if I'm wrong on this. Hold on just a second. I stand corrected, but he was passing $20 phony forged bills. That was the problem.
Exactly. So he was doing something illegal. But the way he died and what happened and what that officer did should never, ever happen to anybody. And I condemn that. But also another question, who paid for this funeral? I'm sure it was not free, gratis.
You know, that is an excellent point, and it was, like I stated earlier, a funeral that had all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and they spared no expense. I can't answer that, but I can tell you this much, and I think you'll concur with me, that it certainly didn't come out of the Floyd family pocket.
No. I'd love to see someone really dig in and find out where that money came from, because that church wasn't free, that carriage wasn't free. To get Al Sharpton there, that costs a lot of money. Al Sharpton doesn't do anything.
And the gold
enriches him.
The golden coffin.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a question there.
We're going to sound, and I can hear the complaints coming in already, we're going to sound very racist in our talking about this situation with this funeral yesterday of George Floyd. But let's call it like it is. Number one, I'll back up and maintain that was a funeral of gala proportions that they reserve and have on TV for heads of state and presidents. And to think that this man, George Floyd, is going to be afforded all of this with a criminal past past of serving time in a state prison in Texas for armed robbery and then being involved in drugs and being involved in home invasions. Wait a minute. There's not the hero factor that you really think there is.
Exactly. And I'm not looking at it as a man of color or anything. The man was a criminal. He was doing wrong, so he had an interaction with the police. So I can't understand why he's getting such a grand fair gala, like you say, and this police captain of 38 years
yes.
died protecting a store owner, and he just barely gets mentioned.
But there were so many others. What about all the police over the last 2 years that have been shot and killed on duty, going to help and protect and serve families? I mean, this whole thing is getting completely out of hand. And by the way, many of them are black officers that have suffered under the guise of criminals that are trying to perpetrate their wares of going and breaking into buildings and stealing and thievery and everything else. Those people, those policemen are never mentioned.
Exactly it. When they say that Black Lives Matters and they pick and choose which Black Lives matter, they've lost all credibility with me.
Absolutely. I'm worried, Doug. You've been a good listener for a long time, but my remarks this morning, I'm going to stand behind. I've taken some criticism over the last couple of days by some of the Looney Tune left in this area that have called me or emailed me, etc., and they're criticizing me, saying, oh, well, you're being theatrical. We're not in as bad a shape as you say we are. Doug, I'm telling you what, I honestly believe that we're hanging by a thread right now of where the left could basically take over, and we're going to see sheer and pure anarchy rule in the streets if we're not careful.
Exactly. How are they going to get us into a one-world government without taking us down to the low levels? And that's exactly how they're do it, because they can't have a one-world government when we're the shining mansion on the hill. We got to be down there in the ghettos with everybody else.
I just thought that the situation was very crass yesterday, and I'll go on record as saying that. But let me give you one that's even worse for our kids. I saw a excerpt on the news last night that sickened me, and it was about the children's television show Sesame Street. They were even portraying America is bad, America is evil to the children that watch that show on Sesame Street. We have got so many problems in this country that our values, our laws, and our Constitution are honestly hanging in the balance, like I said earlier.
Exactly. We are one election away from becoming a socialist country.
Amen.
But just remember, everybody, you can vote in socialism, but you got to shoot your way out of it.
Boy, that's very well put. Doug, I got another call waiting, please.
You bet. Hey, everybody, let's do what we can for our senior centers. I know they're struggling right now. I heard yesterday, and I'll be real quick, a lady stopped in and seen me, and they're only getting Meals on Wheels, and the state gives them $2 per meal that they deliver.
And I think the costs are well over $5, aren't they?
They're close to $5.
Yeah.
And they still got their overhead. They still got electricity they got to pay for. I mean, they are really struggling now, and that's unheard of. Only getting $2 per meal.
Amen. And then all the time in our society, we hear, oh, we got to do this for the children. What about the elderly and the seniors?
Exactly. I'd like to see the politicians that voted that in live on $2 a meal.
Yeah. Doug, God bless you, man. Thanks for all you do. Appreciate it very much. Talking about great eating, and I know where there's a good place to go eat, and boy, the people are nice. The menu is fantastic. You're going to enjoy it, and they're going to have June 18th through the 21st a great big doings over at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner at 611 North Overland in Burley. they're going to be having hot time in the summer fun. Absolutely. They're going to have chairs and tables set up outside, weather permitting. And, of course, they're going to have a duck pond where they're going to draw for prizes. We're going to have a good time over there. The Lunch Bunch is going to be there on the 18th. That's a Thursday at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Oberlin in Burley, America's Diner. Everybody, come on, be with us at Denny's Restaurant. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Zeb, I'm going to make a prediction. Hollywood is going to make a movie sanctifying this guy, making a saint out of him, and that's going to inflame more problems for our country. Hollywood is behind the Antifa bunch, and I don't care what anybody says. That's the way it is.
You know, I'm going to be talking to my dear friend James Herson, and you've probably heard him on the program many times in the past. He's an attorney in Los Angeles, and especially in the Hollywood area, and that is an excellent point. I'm going to ask him, because anybody that knows what's going on in Hollywood, it's James Herson. He's on a lot of television talk shows, etc. He's going to be on next week, and I'm just going to point blank blunt ask him that, because I believe you're right. I think you're 100% right. They will do this more of a glorification through a film, whether made for TV or the big screen. I think you're right.
Well, there's going to be more riots in the streets backed by the Hollywood bunch.
Well, I agree with you, Tony. I agree with you, and I hope not too. We have to get back to a sense of being together in this country and not divided. And I don't see any uniting here whatsoever, because Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and the Democrats, they don't want any unification. They love this division.
Well, they want to see America brought to its knees. This way they can maintain all the power, do whatever they want. China will be able to walk over us. The Soviet Union will be able to take us down. And that's where it's at.
I think you're right. Tony, God bless you, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Caller number 2, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Zeb. Well, 700 police officers, some of them severely injured in all of these riots. 700. You don't hear that on the mainstream media, but that the prime function of government is protection of life and property. And right now, of course, there's all of this media has been centered on police brutality. It keeps going on and on. They'll show instances on videos where police are maybe using supposedly excess force. Well, they wouldn't have to use excess force if there wasn't all of this rioting going on to begin with.
That's right.
And trying to bring peace and quiet. But our local police, we need to support them. The sheriff is the most important elected office, much more so than our U.S. senators or anybody else, because they are the last line of defense between the federal government and us. And if they capitulate and allow the feds to come in and take over their departments, which the feds are certainly trying to do. Sheriff Carter here, I know, is quite aware of that. But if they take the federal money, they're going to take the federal controls. That's the bottom line.
I agree with you, Adrian. And Adrian, please have some empathy for my situation this morning. I'm stacked up on phone calls. I appreciate your call and your comments because you're straight on, and I appreciate it. God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Support our local police and keep them independent from the federal government.
All right, sir.
And we need to support them. Let them know the job they're doing, and we appreciate them very much.
Thanks, Adrian. Thank you very much. Appreciate your call. Caller number 2, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Zeb, I just wanted to mention that, at least correct one thing from Doug's call, and that is that the services of the carriage at George Floyd's funeral were donated by the carriage company. That was reported by NBC News on the national evening broadcast.
Yeah, but really,
it shows the carriage company's name, which was probably quite a valuable advertising for them.
Absolutely, but
I just want to mention that the services of the carriage were actually donated.
All right, but wait a minute. Let's just get right down to the brass tacks at the bottom line where the signatures are on the paper. What difference does it make? The whole point of our conversation is, and I want you to respond to this, is that funeral on network television, cable news networks, and most of that time, always when there's a passing of a person, is saved for and used to have a statesman-type funeral, a presidential funeral, that type of thing. I absolutely don't think that George Floyd was of that caliber with his background and what he had been involved in to make him a national and a world hero when really he was not.
I agree. He was not a hero. He was not deserving of this type of funeral.
That's right.
But when we discuss these types of things, it's important to get the facts straight.
Well, there was no ill getting of the facts. I mean, it was donated, and you know as well as I do, the purpose for the donation was for the advertisement that they could have on national TV. National and international TV. But the cost of the funeral, you know as well as I do, are not economically cheap. They cost a lot of money. I don't want to get into the cost of funerals or anything else, but what I'm saying is the time that was devoted for the networks with the setting up of the cameras and the flying in of all the material, the technical staff to make sure that it's on the air and handled properly, that cost a lot of money, and those type of things are normally reserved for statesman funerals and presidential funerals. You will admit that.
Oh, absolutely. He was not deserving of this type of funeral, and the amount of time that was spent by the network on broadcasting this, it was ridiculous. It wasn't worthy of that type of an effort. But there's an agenda behind it. I think we all realize that.
You know, right there.
Pushing an agenda with this type of a funeral for him.
Okay, but wait a minute. I agree with you. Caller, just a minute. You made a point.
Not deserving of this kind of adulation.
You made a point, and I absolutely agree with you on this, but I want you to elaborate on it. There was an agenda. I want you, in your words, to explain what the agenda is or was.
Well, I think this has something to do with reparations. And what I mean by that, and I'm sure you're aware of what reparations are.
Absolutely.
For many years has been saying that they would like to have the federal government pay them for all the years of bondage and servitude that they did when they were slaves. And in addition to that, to all the racism, and then really it has been blatant. Anybody who says that America wasn't racist in this past is wrong. It's happened. We know that. We admit to that. But today America has changed a lot from where it was 200 years ago. But I still think that there's a huge number of people who want to see that recompense. I heard it just reported a day or two ago that they wanted $15 trillion to be paid to the black community.
That's right.
And I believe the bottom line is money, but also a political, a social agenda. This act of kneeling before blacks it's reprehensible. It should never happen. Americans don't kneel to anyone. And I just think that that's the agenda. It's about money. It's about power. It's about all these rightfully perceived slights that the black community has experienced, for many, many years. And there's still racism in America. I fully admit that. I see it every day in my own life. But it's not nearly as bad as it was 50 to 100 years ago.
Well, let's...
Improving. But, again, I go back to the idea. I don't think that reparations are warranted. I mean, I guess I could make the argument if there was someone who was a slave that was still alive today, maybe they're deserving reparations. But that's not the case. Everyone who was a slave is deceased.
Let me make a point to you.
Freed. The black community as a whole has been freed. And I believe America has admitted that what slavery was wrong. And they're trying to get today's America to pay for the ill that's happened in the past by previous Americans. I don't think that's right, but I believe it's a social, a political, and a financial goal is what they're looking for.
Well, and that was stated, caller, during the funeral yesterday. in maybe a not-so-subtle fashion. That, and I'll just kind of paraphrase, that now it's time for America to pay us back. That was said by a couple, including Sheila Jackson Lee in a not-so-subtle fashion, and other speakers. But to go one step further, and I'm going to hold off on the weather for a second because I want you to respond. I don't look at what happened 250 to 300 years ago as anything that is your fault or my fault. It was an accepted practice, even though it was an ugly, bad practice at that time of having slaves. And I will go one step further. I would venture to you, and I want you to respond on this quickly, that bringing the slaves here from Africa, which of course was done by black slave traders, was possibly the best thing that ever happened to the black race because it brought them to America. 8 years we had a black president. We had a black attorney general. No one would have ever thought that would have happened. Your response quickly, because I'm late.
Okay, well, my response to that is, for today's blacks, that's true. That statement is true. But for the blacks at that time, it's not true. But those people are gone. The blacks who are living now in the United States of America, I think, have a pretty decent life. But the blacks at that time, it was a horrendous thing that happened.
I agree.
Even though it was the blacks that were doing it to them.
I agree.
So that's my comment.
Nope, and I hope you call back. I really enjoy visiting with you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, as you know, old Zeb's late again, and that means I got to get the weather on first, and then I'll take your call. Please bear with me. Do not hang up. Do not pass go. Do not get $200, whatever. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids are a sponsor of the weather, and we're very, very appreciative of all they do for our hearing health. From Dr. Christine Pickup and her staff, I urge you to call and make an appointment at 312-0957. They're right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room, and with the best technology and diagnostic testings to help your hearing. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We'll be warming up for the next couple of days and cooling off by the weekend. Here's a look at your weather forecast. For today, we are expecting sunny skies, a little bit of a breeze, and a high of 78. Tonight, beautifully clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 87. Winds are going to be picking up out of the east-northeast at about 10 miles an hour. Winds could gust as high as 23 miles an hour by Thursday night. Partly cloudy skies with a low of 56. Friday, partly sunny and 90. More clouds rolling in for Friday night with a low of 56. Then by Saturday, partly sunny skies, 74. By Sunday, mostly sunny, 68. That's a look at your weather for 7.
Oh, thank you, Gina. Sounds good to me. Don't forget Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And believe me, the experts that are helping you with the best technology for your hearing health. Get a hold of them today, 312-0957. Caller, you've been very patient. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you today?
I am good, thank you.
Good. I think you bring up an interesting point with the funeral services for this Mr. Floyd and the amount of money and different things that was spent on it. And when I see that, it typically makes me think that something else is going on here. And, you know, something that there is a lot of questions here about race and other things, but I think we have a need to look at what's being done to our law enforcement and wonder why that's happening. I think some of these movements for defund the police or make certain legal changes to the way they handle their business are an attempt to sort of undermine our local law enforcement, those who are managing things at a city and a county level. There are people out there, as you well know, who are looking to consolidate government control, bring things into more of a global network, and I think that they're using this, and that's where a lot of this money is coming from, in an attempt to undermine our local law enforcement. And so we as citizens, I think we have a right to recognize and realize the amount of sort of political influence and control we can exercise over our own communities when we have a good sheriff and good police officers, which I think we do locally.
You know, I'm so glad I'm so glad to have you call in and say what you said this morning, because last week I had Minidoka County Sheriff Eric Snar on the program. Tomorrow I'm going to have Cassia County Sheriff Jay Heward on the program. And I'm going to tell you right up front, I am going to be very blunt and very honest about my feelings about our local police forces, because I think they are subject to a lot of problems brought in by evil left people that want to start on the ground floor, the county sheriff's departments or the city police departments, and see chaos reign there. That's my honest feeling.
And those men are the legal force to enforce the law.
Absolutely.
Within our jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
Sheriff Snar, Sheriff Heward, and we have to know and respect that, because the question I think everyone needs to ask themselves is, if the police were to go away, if we were to defund them, do you really think that would stay and, continue on? No, everything would digress into chaos, at which case somebody would step in and fill that void. And if we've gotten rid of the good guys, then who else is going to come and take that position? And my guess is it's not going to be somebody who we can elect.
Absolutely. Caller, I just realized who this is, and I appreciate your call and your comments this morning. I'm sorry I'm short on time and I got more calls, but God bless you and thank you for your participation this morning.
Thanks, Ed. We'll see you.
Thank you, sir. Caller number 2, I'll be right there. I promise. I've got to get this in. I want to brag a little bit about our friends at Berry Equipment and Rental, Sales, Service, and Parts at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Oh, Corey and the crew, good people. And then Eli over at 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and the Nampa location. I'm telling you, they've got all the equipment for the lifting, the digging, the pushing, the carrying, the leveling, everything. The Bobcats, the entire inventory of Bobcats and all the trenchers and the scissor lifts and the Doosan wheel loaders and excavators. Great financing programs and great rental programs at Berry Equipment and Rental, Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. My comments are concerning this slavery thing. I believe that what's being done is very racist. It's sad and it's sickening and it's wrong, in that the blacks have singled themselves out as being the elitists in this slavery thing, when we know through history that there were Chinese, there were Irish, there were white children and people who were enslaved, indentured servants, whatever you want to call it, not just here in the United States, but throughout the world. And so for the blacks to single themselves out as being, the woe is me, I'm the only one, is wrong, inappropriate, and never should happen.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And for something that happened 300 years ago, and then to make demands now in this day and age of possible reparations to the tune of $15 trillion, who's going to discern who is really from a legitimate slave family or not? Or are we going to write a $15 trillion check and just give it out en masse to the NAACP? What are you going to do?
Exactly. And how are you going to decide which race is the one? That could literally go to everyone's families, because I know of family members along my family line who had children who were slave workers in the mines in England.
Yes.
So where are you going to stop with this?
There is no stoppage, and that's the continuation of a problem that has to be sat down right now at a table. All parties have to, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the president, whether it's senators and congressmen, members of the NAACP, we've got to get America back together again, because it's burning, and the fire is getting bigger.
Exactly. And who's to say that in 20 years, people aren't going to come and say, oh, well, your parents and their generation did this wrong. We want reparations.
There you go. Absolutely.
That was the way it was done then. If we're making changes and we're feeling like we're improving and doing the right thing now, you cannot go back and change yesterday.
There you go. Thank you. You can't look in the rear view mirror and change it. Thank you very much. God bless you. I just now realized who this is. God bless you. Thanks a lot. I got another call. I got to run. Caller, I've got exactly a minute. 1 minute. Go fast.
It won't take me that long. But if they want to go down that rabbit hole, how about all the blacks give reparation to all of the whites who fought for their freedom and died for their freedom to free them?
I'm certain that you're making the assumption of going back to the Civil War and the gratuity paid to all the people that fought for their freedoms. I'm sure you're correct.
Exactly.
I agree. I mean, the sky is the limit. It's basically so idiotic to think about reparations and payments for the past. I mean, how do you go back and pay for history? There have been wrongdoings all through history. Look at the American Indian. You could come up with a lot of stories in that regard. Go all the way back to Alexander the Great and the takeover of all the nations. I mean, where do you stop this idiotic movement of reparations?
Exactly. And I was reading, there was a black man wrote a little column on the social media, and he said he holds in honor all of those whites who fought to free his ancestors from slavery.
There you go. Doug, I am so late. Got to run. Thank you so much. We're going to head to the news. They're going to come in and mess everything up. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. Thank you much. And a good morning to you on this Wednesday, June the 10th already. Holy smokes. You know, you look over your shoulder at the days and the months, and it just honestly just feels like Easter was last week. I mean, my goodness, where does the time go? Zeb at the Ranch brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a very safe, clean environment and the best in tires. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, we're also going to have this good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at the Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services.
Nobody loves trash, but they do at Western Waste Services. They love to come get your trash. They love to get rid of your trash. They love to help you manage your trash, whether it's with the dumpsters in various sizes or the weekly pickup of your garbage. My goodness, call them. They are always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, the best. Nice people, 734-6969. Western Waste Services. You get a hold of them today. Also, I want you to remember that in a time of need, in a time of crisis, when there's the passing of a loved one, I know some folks that are there to serve you always with the best possible support and comfort, and I'm talking about Joel Heward, his family and staff over at Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. And the number I want you to remember and call, 436-5636. I'll say it again, 436-5636. And they always treat you and your family with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. They care. With Hanson Mortuary with Joel Heward, 436-5636. And Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Hey, there's going to be some big doings going on over at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner on June 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. Oh, they're going to say we're going outside. The weather's going to be beauteous, I hope. And, of course, they're going to have tables and chairs set outside. We're going to be there on the 18th with Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Oh, my. They're going to have a big old duck pond there to draw out prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun. We hope you're there at America's Diner. And that's, of course, Denny's Restaurant at 611 North Overland in Burley. Oh, my. A lot of fun. Great people. Delicious food at America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant. Let's go to the phone line right now. And with us is a dear, dear friend. And I say good morning to Mr. Dave Bego. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing great, Zeb. How are you doing?
Dave, you and I have had a good friendship for about the last 5, 6, 7, I can't remember how many years, and have been on this program many, hundreds of times. I'm really worried this morning, and I'm not going to mix any wishes into my conversation. I'm going to tell you bluntly how I feel, that America today, as compared to just 3 months ago, is in severe trouble with our values, our Constitution, and our laws, and we'd better put the hammer down now, or we're going to lose it. How would you respond?
Well, I agree with you, Zeb. The left is doing their best to bring this country down, and they're fighting it hard. And with all these groups like Black Lives Matters and Soros and the unions and everything, they're continuing to do this because, again, I'm going to say this every time I talk to you this year, up till November, is it's an election year, and this is their agenda, is to bring him down and bring the Senate down and grab both of those and keep the House and take over, and that's what they're doing. But I will tell you this, which is kind of interesting. Some of the black people in this country are starting to become furious with that, and there's a black cop in L.A. that she's just furious with what the leftists are doing, and she blasted Black Lives Matter, and which is another part of the SEIU and Soros thing, and that this is wrong, and that we need to do the right things for this country, and the right things for our police too. So it's kind of interesting where this is going.
Well, you use the word interesting. I'll use the word terrorizing. In my 72 years, I've never seen as much divisiveness and planned division by an evil, sinister left that wants to absolutely denigrate you and I because of the color of our skin. Now, you might say, well, that's how you treated the blacks all these years. No, I didn't, and I know you didn't. I don't like being lumped into a category that we are the evil ones that have to be eliminated. And that's the big push in this country right now. The color races, if you will, and they call themselves that, are absolutely coming out with an anti-white campaign that I don't see an end to this divisiveness. Do you?
Yeah, I think there will be, Zeb. I think that things will step up and people will step up because they're getting tired of this type of thing. And, we are in the midst of a revolution is what it is. And but I think the American people are starting to wake up and stuff like that. And, the riots are starting to go down and other things. But we're still going to have these far left that are going to continue this agenda. And we've got to stop them, and we've got to get people on board.
I said on the program a couple of days ago that 3 words, I think, sum up the agenda of the left right now. And it's blame, shame, and then defame. And they are excellent at taking people and or businesses and blaming, shaming, and defaming them almost out of existence. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, they're good at that. Like I've said, Zeb, I've gone through that when I was attacked by the SEIU, and I've been through all these things, the riots and the shaming and political stuff in the news, and calling me a racist and a bigot, and just on and on and on. And I've been through this, but I know that if we have some backbone and we stand up to these people, we can win.
I certainly hope and pray you are 100% right. We have a caller with a question or a comment. Good morning, caller. Quickly, you're on the air.
Good morning. One thing that I can't understand, why have we continued with this reparation for the American Indian, let's say, covers everybody? That's been going on for so long, and we have done nothing but make a mess out of a lot of these Indian people's lives because they don't work. They've never worked a day in their life, and we've given them everything.
No, that's
we stood up.
No, wait a minute. That's an all-encompassing statement, and that's not true. You can't say that they don't work. I know many that have great jobs, ranches, farms, work in the cities. I know a lot of attorneys that are of Native American descendants. So don't say they don't work, because I'm not going to put up with that. That's an all-encompassing statement that's not true.
It is, but I've dealt with the people of the Shoshone-Bannock tribe, and there's a lot of them. Let's just put it this way. There is a lot of people living on the reservations, whatever state it is, that's getting money each month for doing nothing.
Well, I agree with the treaties and everything that were structured well over almost 175 years ago. There's a lot of errors in the ways that have created dependency. But I'm not going to get into that right now this morning, Keith, because I want to stay with the theme of the Antifa and also the Black Lives Matter this morning. I'll talk more about that subject tomorrow morning in the first hour. How's that? Thank you.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Bye.
Going back to our situation with, let's use Antifa and Black Lives Matter, Dave. Right here locally this past weekend, a lot of young people, I say a lot here in this area, I guess that would be a lot, in a parade march, if you will, of about 120 to 130 younger people, parading and marching for Black Lives Matter. And I found that to be so crass and so out of place because I wonder if these young people really understand the format, if you will, of Black Lives Matter. It's a very evil, sinister organization that was founded upon Marxist principles, and here are young people, gullible as they are, they're marching for it, and that really bothers me.
Yeah, Zeb, but that's what the left does and the unions do. They get into these kids' brains and brainwash them, and because they know they'll listen to them, because these kids are, they haven't lived enough of life to become experienced at some of this stuff, and they don't. And when these left says, "Oh, well, you need to do this because it'll be good for you," and we'll help you, and we'll give you this and get you this and all this kind of stuff, and those kids are sitting back going, "Oh, that sounds great," and that's what they do. And they go after the younger population because it's easier to convince them and brainwash them than it is the older population that's got some experience in this country. And that's what they're doing. And it's kind of like the Democratic Party, especially in these states that these riots and everything has been the worst. Like California and New York and up in Chicago and other places and stuff like that. It's because the Democratic Party, who has been controlled and moved to the left by the unions and Soros and, Antifa and Black Lives Matters and all that kind of thing, is, by giving people stuff. And that's really what's causing the problem is that these people, they've been on entitlements for so long from the left that they go, "Oh, that sounds great. I don't want to work. I just want to sit home, do this, or go play, or do something like this." And that's what it's about. And then going back to the police just a minute, I think there's a lot of good policemen across this country, but one of the bad things, what's the root of the problems that are going on with the police across this country, and I think behind the scenes, some of them are being controlled to do some of these things, unfortunately, like the killing of Doug Flynn, is the unions are controlling this, and they're trying to work, people get people all mad and upset with the government and with the whites and everything else, so they can get the votes and the things they need to take over this country.
I must ask, you meant to say George Floyd, didn't you?
Floyd, what'd I say, Flynn?
Yes. I want to talk to you about that. And again, if you feel that I deserve criticism, I can take it from anybody. Go ahead. But yesterday, during my lunch hour, after I was off the air, I sat and turned on the television, and all the networks basically were covering the George Floyd funeral. It was a funeral of enormous proportions and coverage and technical advisors, camera people, everything from all the networks. And it was a funeral typical of what might be given and afforded to the passing of a president or a statesman of our country, etc. And yet I sat there, and I'm not trying to demean the person and or the family. George Floyd suffered a heinous death that was unnecessary, and the cops should be held accountable and punished for what they did. But, to give and afford this man, George Floyd, that was a criminal many times over and had been in prison, had committed many, many crimes, was on drugs, and also sentenced to 10 months in the state jail for possession of cocaine and involved in home invasions. How can you honestly say that was worthy of a state-type funeral on national television?
Zeb, it really comes down back to the basics again. They're using it to promote their agenda, and that's what this is all about. And, of course, the media is controlled basically by the unions and that. So, they put this all on as part of their agenda to move forward and, bring down Trump and the Senate and keep the House and, and take over this country because... And I know people probably get tired of hearing me say this, but at the end of the day, their goal is to make us into a socialistic, communistic country. And what a lot of the blacks don't understand is that won't be any better for them. It'll be worse for them.
Absolutely.
If you look over the last several years of the Trump administration, black employment has increased dramatically, and jobs have gotten better, and wages have gotten better, and everything like that. But if we turn into a socialistic, communistic country, it's going to all go downhill.
I really wish I could attend a breakfast meeting with you and other business people back in Indianapolis, Indiana. And why I say that is this. I would like to hear and just sit there and listen, not say anything, but sit there and listen to the business people that you associate with when maybe at around the breakfast table it comes up about the defunding and the destroying of police forces in major cities around this United States. As of this broadcast this morning, there are over 20 cities, major cities in the United States that are contemplating defunding and getting rid of their police forces thanks to the instigating of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I'm just shaking my head as to how stupid these people can be. Your comments.
Well, that's right. We need our police force and that out there, but what we need to do, and this is the bottom line back to the police and the unions, is don't defund the police, make them part of the real market, and get rid of the police unions. And that's what's, we got to dismantle or constrain the police unions, and dismantling is probably the best way to go. And there was an article on the American Institute for Economic Research about that this morning, and they talk about that, and that's things I've been talking about for a long time. We have to dismantle these unions because, unfortunately, the unions back in the, 40 years ago or so, they were started by the mob, and this is all the thing we see today is the mob tactics.
Dave, I'm worried about the next generation coming up. I mean, I'm an old man, and I have my grandsons, and, of course, I worry about what's going to happen when they have children. But even on the television children's show Sesame Street, I saw this on the news yesterday, and I was absolutely taken aback. I thought I'd seen it all, heard it all. On the children's television show Sesame Street, they had two characters on there that were absolutely defaming America, condemning America, and being anti-American. And our kids are watching this garbage.
Yep. It's unfortunate, Zeb. I told you, they control the media, and they're trying to change the minds of, the young Americans and bring them up and take us into a socialist, communistic country. And what the problem is people have not really looked into, socialist communist countries like Venezuela and Cuba and, China and Russia and places like that, and you look into these places and you see how people live and how bad their living conditions are, it's really sad. And we really need to wake America up by showing them this stuff.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want you to comment on this. Every day, I have my sources back in D.C. and also New York contact us, and my lovely wife does correspondence with their offices to get all these news stories and everything that we really study and put on the air. And when you hear about stories like yesterday, a couple of more statues of Christopher Columbus were knocked down, broken up, and destroyed. They didn't like Christopher Columbus. And then you talk about the Texas Rangers, the iconic Texas Rangers that are under assault, and their statues are being knocked down and thrown to the ground. They were a major part of Texas growth and Texas history, and now they're being broken and smashed. It seems like these insidious, stupid people out there are absolutely hell-bent on destroying anything with America's history.
You're exactly right, Zeb, and we got to stop them. We got to stand up, and our people in the Senate and Congress in Washington, the Republicans, conservatives, got to stand up, and they got to get it stopped.
I get really emotional about some of this stuff, Dave, because I don't want to see those people, those groups, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, whatever the case might be, take over and warp a great country that my relatives, like yours, gave blood, sweat, and tears and their lives for. It's just not right.
No, it's not right, Zeb, but, this is what goes on in this world, unfortunately. You have people that are try to bring countries down that they don't like, and I think, after the end of World War II and the Vietnam War and stuff like that, those countries that were out to get us decided they couldn't beat us militarily, so they're trying to beat us from within.
One quick answer to a short question. I know that you probably followed. I think he's nothing more than milquetoast and a coward. Roger Goodell with the NFL now stating, we're sorry that we criticized those that knelt for the American flag and the national anthem. Apologizing. Why in the world is the NFL apologizing?
Because they're being cowered by the union. That's the whole story.
You got it. Boy, I'm upset now. Let's go punch a hole in the wall someplace. Dave Bego, Indianapolis, Indiana. God bless you, man. I just really appreciate having you on the program, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on. I enjoy it, and I hope you have a great week, too.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Dear friend, Dave Bego, and author and great business entrepreneur back in Indianapolis, Indiana. Thank you very much. Want to remind you about our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation and Elite Fitness at 1200 Oakley Avenue in Burley. My goodness sakes, Nick Greenwell heads up both of those operations. One to take care of you when you've had an accident or a surgery and try to get rehabilitated and get back to being you. The other to try to keep you healthy and physically fit. Absolutely. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Telephone number to make an appointment, you should, 678-1191. And Elite Fitness at 1200 Oakley Avenue in Burley. And boy, I'm telling you, both of those operations for your health. Check it out today. Another quick note that I want to remind you of before we go to our next guest is, of course, Let's Ride. Now, look at the weather out there today. Look at that. Look at that. Blue sky, sunshine. We're going to have warmer temperatures. Wow. Later this afternoon, maybe you want to jump on your side-by-side or your four-wheeler and get out of Dodge City. I mean, head for the hills. Get on the trails. Enjoy Idaho, beautiful outdoors. Well, you stop over to Let's Ride. They can help you with that. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. The number to call, 436-4771. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Saturdays 9 to 2, and they've got all the accessories, and they've got a super service department to keep you running. All of this at Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and it is true. That's where the fun is sold. Absolutely. I know where protection is sold, too, and that's over at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Oh, my, you better get a hold of these folks. I've been very impressed with the service. I mean, when we call Todd, I mean, bim, bam, boom, he's right back on the old landline helping us out and everything. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and more. And like I said, they're very dedicated and responsive to your needs. All you really need to do is pick up the phone and make an appointment. 436-4424. I'll say that number again. 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really, really nice people. This next gentleman has been on my program quite a few times in the past, and I'm going to ask Sean if the connection has been made and he's on the air. Is our next guest ready to go, Sean?
Yes, he is.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My engineer over at the station, I appreciate your comments. And his name is Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari, and I say good morning, sir, and thank you for taking the time to come back on my program.
Zeb, it's good to be here. Long time I haven't talked, but it's always a blessing and a pleasure talking to you.
Well, it's my treat, sir. And before we go any further, I see that you are throwing your hat in the political ring and running for the 9th District, Illinois seat in Congress. I wish you good luck. How's it going?
Thank you very much. We won our primary, so I'm the Republican nominee. And, of course, November 3rd is the election night. And it's been a little bit difficult given the lockdown because we can't really go out and meet anybody. But we're trying our best to use social media, if possible, to be able to get the word out.
Lieutenant Colonel, I've got to ask you this because you're back there in a state that was highlighted and featured many, many times in the news every night, not only for the devastation and the killing and the looting and burning in Chicago, but all over the state. What is the status of Illinois? And it looks to me like your governor needs to be replaced with maybe some ideas that aren't just going to help a very few in the state of Illinois. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's difficult. Look, leadership is at the heart of it, correct? And most of us were embarrassed waking up just a day ago and seeing what is happening now is on the national media is picking up with the fight that is taking place between the mayor of Chicago and also the aldermen using profanity in their discussions. Leaders have to be focused. Leaders have to be in control. Leaders, under the toughest circumstances, have to be individuals who are able to listen to what is happening on the ground, focus the tools that they have in their kit bags in order to be able to quell what is taking place, which was the looting and the rioting. And unfortunately, I think what happens a lot of times, the leaders just get completely off the focus, and which causes what we have today. Same thing with the governor. There's been a lot of lockdowns, but the lawsuits are now forcing his hand to where he should have taken those steps earlier.
You know, you mentioned the mayor of Chicago, and help me, I think her name is Lightfoot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I listened to the tape between her and some of the aldermen of Chicago, and I was appalled. I was absolutely appalled. And some of the people were brought to tears for their districts were being burned and looted and the threats of violence. One woman was moved to tears in trying to talk to the mayor of Chicago, and one man stood up to her and basically told her exactly where the goat ate the cabbage. But that just adds and points to the fact that Chicago is one of the worst and most illegal cities in the United States.
Well, we have a lot of problems. I wrote a letter on Memorial Day after the Memorial Day shooting, and I was appalled at what was happening. Now, those shootings did not take place in my district, but I wrote and I said it will affect my district. It does affect my district. And soon after that, we had, of course, the riots that took place with the burning and the killings. And a lot of the current shootings that are taking place in Chicago is because when the police were out there trying to stop the rioters and the looters, the turf war began for the gangs, because a lot of people don't know that whether it be CHICOM, the Chinese Communist Party, whether it be the Iranians that pushed their illegal trades through the tri-borders area, which actually brought in through our southern border, are going to use these opportunities to be able to get into the areas they want to solidify themselves. The fighting that took place between the blacks and the Latinos was taking place over turf war, drug war, because the cops were too busy trying to handle the looters and the rioters. So you have to, as a politician, have thought about everything that is happening in your city, and you have to understand the link analysis, and you got to understand it's not just what is happening locally in a neighborhood in Garfield in this case. How is it tied to world politics, and how the world policies and that are policies that are against us are going to use that to their advantage.
Lieutenant Colonel, you had a wonderful 20-plus year career with the United States Army and Special Operational Forces. You know what's going on. You understand combat. And I'm sitting here in Idaho, and I just absolutely am taken aback that in 3 months, this country is coming apart and unraveling at the seam. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's part of how insurgency operations work, correct? I mean, I've seen them. I've operated them downrange. My first run-ins with Antifa was when we picked up the support for the Syrian Christians that were going through a genocide in 2014 in Iraq and Syria. One of our commanders was ambushed and killed by a group of Kurdish YPG, which are socialists in nature in Syria, who was at that time operating with the YPG, getting training, lessons learned, Antifa. If you go today and Google search YPG and Antifa, you'll see the YPG has a flag of Antifa on their site. And these are the same individuals who are today running around in our cities. There's a chart that Special Operational Forces used that looked at preparations for the possibility of how to actually engage insurgencies. And one of those pillars states that intense shaping of the morale of the government, administration, police, and military. That is one step below where you call it underground insurgency before you start getting into the larger insurgency capabilities. These are things that are used to destabilize governments. When I say that the Latinos and the blacks are killing each other on the streets of Chicago as we're dealing with the riots, it's because the Ecuadorians and the Honduras cartels are trying to use their Mexican connections in the black neighborhoods to expand their footprint, and they're doing this on support of what? Others, in order to be able to have an illegal trade established so that these insurgencies, Antifa being one of them, to be able to continue funding themselves. Their problem we have is Antifa has a good recruiting base because a lot of people just want to be part of an organization that says, I'm anti-fascism, not understanding what these organizations are for and how they were created, and the fact that we've had to deal with them downrange, in my case in Syria, where they killed one of my commanders.
I'm sitting here, and you said two words that really piqued my attention. You said not understanding. Not understanding. And then I would throw in the word also, America is so naive. Just last weekend, we had a group of kids, younger people, marching for Black Lives Matter. Just last weekend in our local newspaper, we had a op-ed piece in the paper saying that Antifa's not bad. We should worry more about white groups. I mean, I'm sitting here and the insanity about Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Why is there such a naivete about these groups?
Because people don't do their due diligence of studying their background. Like I said, people knew even in the last administration that these guys were operating in Syria with the Kurdish YPG. They were getting their training there. Some of them go to Ukraine and get their training there and come back here. However, when the Washington Post, I established a my own podcast because of the elections. On 1 January, when I had my first airing of my podcast, we had the Washington Post that had an op-ed set up by the guy who actually wrote the handbook on Antifa. It says it in his byline. As long as you got major press media and understanding that they could easily get manipulated for information operation campaign, they will not understand how insurgencies operate. I'll give you a perfect example. Start keeping an eye on individuals coming out now, setting up donation boxes to include politicians saying we need to give money to our food pantries in the areas that were most affected. Why is that needed? Because if I'm a guy who's running an insurgency, I'm going to start sending volunteers to go volunteer for food pantries. And I'm going to start asking people to donate there. Not only do I burn your facility, then I come and tell you, hey, give money so I could restore your facility. And this is what happens because these organizations know how to tie themselves to these politicians and manipulate their way into the system. So you got your armed capability and you got your political capability. If you want to defeat them, you got to send people to Congress who understand who these are and actually use all the instruments of power that the state has to go after them and get rid of them, to include the Federal Bureau of Investigations.
You know, Sargis, for all the time you've been on this program, you're such a straight shooter and tell it like it is, and I respect that. But here we had the riots, the burnings, the lootings, and the injuring of police officers across the board from Washington, D.C., clear to L.A. And these people were going against everything that the governors of various states said. Oh, you got to have social distancing. Oh, we got to stay in our house. Oh, we can't go anywhere. Oh, you can't put a boat in the lake and go fishing. And yet these mobsters were out on the street absolutely burning America. Why isn't there retribution against these people and going with facial recognition or any technology and arresting these bums?
Well, that's because the politicians are now tied to these individuals. The person who was in Antifa came out of Occupy Wall Street. That individual who went and got training with the YPG in Syria, as an example, is the same individual who ties himself to all these other so-called organizations. So when these individuals come in and they tie themselves to Black Lives Matter, they tie themselves to the politician on the ground who has these organizations that were established in 2016, as an example. The husband of the incumbent here that I'm running against established one of those organizations that was trying his best to go after their current POTUS's ability to win the election in 2016. So he got busted in Project Veritas that did a piece on him, but a lot of these individuals you see that are from these organizations flow through these channels. So it's hard when the politician has to go after himself, to have to justify why that individual made a decision, whether themselves or their family member, to tie themselves to these individuals. TRICOM itself, you put facial recognitions of individuals out of Seattle that were stoking the fires. And you have individuals who are coming up with 40% hit, to include on their own social media platforms, that they're actually in support of Chinese communist leadership by name to trying to destroy the American economy. You have to understand, whatever cause there is, as an insurgent operator, I'm going to use it to flip it to get to my end goal using you. So you have to understand that that's a reality that we deal with on a daily basis.
Let me ask you this. The Democrats, and I got to be very blunt on this, the Democrats, with their bowing and kowtowing to the left, and the despicable Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and the rest of them wearing their little cloth around their neck and bowing. I won't bow to anybody, Sargis. I will not bow to any man. The only time I take a knee is at church to praise my good Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's my bow. But I'll tell you something, the Democrats are doing all this, but where are the Republicans? They're not standing up and taking charge and really telling how repulsive this movement is.
Well, the problem is that politicians will play to what they want, to what is called a base, to win elections. At the end of the day, they only care about the votes. And I've had a discussion with a young man here who said, do you think Black Lives Matter, from an African-American community? I said, if I didn't, I wouldn't be running for Congress. But I said, do they matter to you? He goes, yes. I said, then if that's the case, why are you not running for Congress? So they mean more to me than to you. He said, how's that possible? I said, you have 535 members in Congress. 100 of them sit in the Senate. The rest of them sit in the House of Representatives. Show me that any of the candidates that you have that are running that are qualified like you to be there to make the changes at the federal level. I said, the problem is you constantly placate to these individuals. Taking a knee is not going to get laws passed. Writing your name of an organization on the streets of Washington isn't going to get laws passed. They're playing you, and you constantly keep on falling for it, and you constantly keep on voting for them. Well, as long as that relationship exists between the guy who takes a knee for a vote and the individual who's willing to vote for him because he took a knee, you'll never get to an end state of fixing the social issues that you may have in this country.
When you look at the situation, you have been around the globe fighting for our United States. But when you look at the situation in the last 3 months, like I said, fall apart at the seams. I can remember vividly in February, our economy was absolutely like a moonshot. It was going over the moon. Everything was great. We were looking forward to another great year in this country. And then, bam, all of a sudden, we're brought down to our knees. On a scale of 1 to 10, with your expertise, where are we on that scale of 1 to 10? 1 not being bad, 10 being horrendous. Where are we?
Well, we're going to lose 7% of our GDP for this year. There might be a recovery of 3% for next year. But where we are today is that it doesn't matter what the facts are. It matters on how you can spin those facts for your political seat, right? We're 5 months away from an election, and the individuals that are today in government are trying to keep their seat. They will do whatever they can. Well, in that 3 months, guess what? Iran's going to do what it wants to do. Russia will continue doing what it wants to do. China will continue to do what it wants to do to ensure that at a global level, 10, 20 years from now, U.S. is not the global lead. Where if you cannot be the moral lead for the world or the compass for the world, the moral compass, if you constantly have these chinks in your armor, you're never going to be able to get to the point you were in the past. Unfortunately, we are eating ourselves internally. We keep on attacking each other for politics and power.
You made this statement about China and Russia, and I've asked you about this before, and I know your feelings on this, but I want you to reiterate it to my audience. China scares me. Russia doesn't. What are your thoughts?
You need Russia to win in the Middle East because Russia understands that without having an ally like the U.S. in the Middle East, China will eat both of their lunches, and Russia needs the Middle East to survive. So in that capacity, it will be friendly to you. China, however, has an intent to replace us. And I will tell you, they're on top of the hill. They haven't, secured it yet, but we're looking up at them. And in the past, when we fought against Russia, Russia didn't control our manufacturing base. When we fought against the fascists, the real fascists, Nazi Germany and in Italy, they didn't control our manufacturing base. China controls it. I wrote an article on the P4 lab and what was happening with the Wuhan virus. I wrote it for our local newspaper here in the first part of February. I had to go through 12 iterations to try to get it to where they would accept it. It became very difficult. I finally took it to Japan Forward because local newspapers, because of their economic ties to China, didn't want to even touch it. So I eventually ended up giving it to Japan Forward, which was published on 3 April. And it really lays out how China goes about its business to try to ensure it replaces the United States. And today they're in Hong Kong removing individuals from their political seats for their benefit as we're too busy trying to paint the names of organizations on the streets of Washington, that at the end of the day, that paint job is not going to pass a law.
There you go. Sargis, final thought. How much of a problem is this destabilization for the last 3 months, if you will, going to hurt, in your opinion, the re-election of Donald Trump?
I don't know about that. I think it would be difficult, especially with the COVID issue. I think this election you're looking at maybe in the last 10 days to see how it kind of flips. But you have individuals who are determined to really sink our country into a hole just so they could retain power for themselves. It's unfortunate. If you take the top 7 individuals from any of the parties that we have, you're looking at 200-plus years of time in the legislature. And our country is only 240-plus years old. So it's sad that that's the reality, but these individuals only care about retaining their position in the seats of government. And unfortunately, most of those seats were probably manufactured in China anyway, and probably somewhere on that seat that they're fighting against other Americans against probably says made in China.
I want to wish you the very best. This gentleman is the CEO of Near East Center for Strategic Engagement and running for Congress, 9th District, Illinois. I wish you the best. Pray for you, Lieutenant Colonel Sargas Sangari. Please come back on the program soon. Thank you so much.
We'll do anytime, Zeb, and if people want to know about our race, they could go to votesingary.com. Much appreciated, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. I just absolutely appreciate that man taking his time to come on our program. He knows. He absolutely knows the good, the bad, and the ugly that's out there in the world today. And I wish him a lot of success in winning that election in November. Thank you very, very much. Wow. Look at the clock. Look at the clock. And I bet you my engineer's going, Zeb, you're running late again. Yep, I am. I'm sorry. I want to remind you that our weather brought to you this hour by my friends, the professionals at Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. I know they're listening right now. And they provide accounting services to the Minnecasia area, and they have for over 50 years. I mean, we're talking the key word, the professionals, with tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, financial statement preparation, retirement planning, all of this and so much more. They care and they serve you, your family, and your business. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We'll be warming up for the next couple of days and cooling off by the weekend. Here's a look at your weather forecast. For today, we are expecting sunny skies, a little bit of a breeze, and a high of 78. Tonight, beautifully clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 87. Winds are going to be picking up out of the east-northeast at about 10 miles an hour. Winds could gust as high as 23 miles an hour by Thursday night. Partly cloudy skies with a low of 56. Friday, partly sunny and 90. More clouds rolling in for Friday night with a low of 56. Then by Saturday, partly sunny skies, 74. By Sunday, mostly sunny, 68. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ray.
Oh, thank you, Gina. And she does a great job every day putting the weather together for my program. And, of course, it's sponsored this hour by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Yes, offices at 1710 Overland in Burley and 625th Street in Rupert. They can and they will help you. So please get a hold of the professionals, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Wow. Coming up next hour, I've got time for a phone call or two. We've got John O'Connor that's coming up next hour, and he served as an assistant U.S. attorney in Northern California representing the United States in both criminal and civil cases, and he is the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and began today's partisan advocacy journalism. So that's a mouthful, but he's going to be on next hour. Then at 10:30, oh boy, one of my favorite guests and a political analyst extraordinaire. You need to listen to this man. You need to listen to this man. Dr. Gerard Lamero is going to be on at 10:30. He knows, understands, and writes about what really is going on. And his latest book called Real World Socialism. And we're going to have quite a talk at 10:30 this morning with Dr. Lamero. Want to remind you, too, about our friends over at Patterson's Electronics. And I think Deanne's got it set up for me that we're going to be visiting with either Curtis or Lorena tomorrow on the program. We're looking forward to that. For all your electronics needs, I urge you to stop in and see see them today. 421 East Main in Burley. Oh, man, they've got all kinds of electronic things and different products that yours truly hasn't got a clue how they work, but I know you folks out there that are more technologically advantaged than I am, you do. Stop in, check out all the sound systems, all the home theater systems, all the televisions and the surveillance cameras. It's all there. Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6 at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. You stop in, see those good folks today. Oh my, let's see what else have we got here. A reminder. What did I do with my reminder? Here it is right here. I got to get this on. A good friend of mine, Jerry Voss, sent this to me. There is going to be a fundraiser, a lunch pickup and raffle for the Minidoka County Senior Center to purchase food Friday, June 26th. And you pick up meals weekdays from 12 to 12:30 through June 26th. And this is all at the Minidoka County Senior Center at 702 11th Street in Rupert. And it's only $5 a meal. Let's support the senior centers and help them. And Modern Woodman is helping to finance and help these folks with matching funds. And Jerry, of course, the activities coordinator, we thank him for all their help. We're going to get ready to go to the news from CBS, and one quick note that I want to make, the absolutely heinous horror story that's coming out of Rexburg with human remains found in the yard of Chad Daybell and the absolutely sick and perverted mother, Lori Vallow. This story goes on, and there's the kids. I certainly hope and pray that those human remains are not the children. It's a devastating story of sickness right here in our state of Idaho. Pathetic. I'm going to turn it back over to my engineer. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. Wow. You look outside, and if you're working inside like I am right now, you can't wait to get outside. It's just beautiful out there today. Zeb at the Ranch brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations. Very safe, clean atmosphere and environment, and the best in tires. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, our friends at Greystone Crossing Senior Living. Seniors, listen to me. This is a beautiful, brand spanking new, beautiful 12-bedroom home for you to enjoy with your friends. 3 meals a day, snacks, housekeeping, local transportation, all of this and so much more. And when you're talking food, you're talking the great cooking of Kelly over there. Peach cobbler, peach pie, I'm coming over. And don't forget, all you need to do to find out about more is call for an appointment at 650-4979. That number again, 650-4979. Let them show you around the beautiful Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with their friends. Want to also remind you, too, about our great friends and neighbors, Lon Hardy and Sharon Wilmot with 7K Metals. If you're not familiar with 7K Metals and silver purchases that you can make and sent right to you at your home, you should be, because you can help yourself build your financial security and future. And this is also a very valuable treasure for your loved ones in the future. Find out more. Please contact Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259. Mention my name. Tell them I told you to call. They'll treat you right. 7K Metals. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and I'm very, very honored to have this man come back. He's the author of the book called Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and began today's partisan advocacy journalism. And we say good morning to John O'Connor. Sir, how are you?
Good morning to you. A beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. We both sound like Mr. Rogers, and we're going to go into the living room and change into a sweater or something. It's beautiful outside.
Yeah.
John, I got to ask you right off the get-go.
Good.
I've got to ask you right off the get-go, John. I am very, very concerned about what's happened to America. I said this before this morning to a previous guest, and I'm going to say the same to you. I'm very concerned as to what's happened to America in the last 3 months. We have absolutely slipped to the edge of the cesspool and are being pushed. How bad is this problem right now in America with all the divisiveness?
Well, it's terrible. Think about this. Think about the autocratic rule we've been under, almost totalitarian, about whether or not we can go fishing in a lake someplace or ply our trades. But yet, when people start rioting and destroying property, it's wrong even to say something about it. I mean, what's really disturbing is recently, I want to say the op-ed people on the New York Times got fired.
Mm-hmm.
The op-ed people on the for the Philadelphia Inquirer that guy got fired for daring to air a point of view that was perfectly legitimate. That maybe people shouldn't riot, and no one was endorsing. I think it was Senator Tom Cotton who thought that maybe some troops should be brought in. And of course, the two people responsible for printing that terrible, terrible op-ed that actually said something that was very sensible, they're gone. So we have a situation here that is very much, I don't know, it's disturbing because, you know, I think comparisons to Hitler and that regime are often facile and shouldn't be made, but boy, this is starting to become a really strange society we're living in, where regular citizens and their regular thoughts and beliefs and dreams are being continually quashed, I would say, by the firm hand of some authority. And yet, authority is lacking to prevent, looting and rioting. I mean, I'm very disturbed with this. I was very disturbed, for instance, about the death of George Floyd. I thought it was terrible, and we ought to focus our attention on the causes of that and put all the shame in the world on these policemen. But to go out and say, well, therefore it's okay to start, killing people. A lot of people got killed because of that. Assassinated. A couple nice black police officers got killed because of it. So so now it gets back to one of my favorite topics, Ev, which is, where is the voice of reason and authority in our media? It is lacking. When people are looting and rioting, it is very difficult for anybody in the mainstream media to say, wait a second, this is wrong, stop it. And let's all get together and join together and stop it. No, they couldn't say that, could they? I mean, is that your impression on this?
Well, it is. And John, I'm going to be very blunt. That's the only way I like to play ball on this program. I'm not going to hide anything in the rose bush. There are very few that have come out and said anything about Antifa or Black Lives Matter, and the others are cowards, as is the Republican Party. I absolutely denounce the leadership of the Republican Party all the way from the Senate on down, because they are gutless and they have not taken the reins in a situation to where they are trying or saying something that might stop all this nonsense.
Well, that's been the history of the modern Republican Party, unfortunately. The best lack all conviction, the worst are full of passionate intensity, and that's what's happening. These fellows cannot speak up, and I think that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump was refreshing to Republican voters.
Yes.
Because finally, there's some guy, however crudely he speaks, or roughly he speaks, he's fighting. He's at least saying, I'm going to say something. I'm going to take a stand. You don't have to agree with everything the guy says, but boy, at least he's saying something. At least he's doing doing something. He's standing up for something. And you're right about Republicans. They have to stand mute because they're just so afraid. Now, they're bad, and of course, the guys on the other side are terrible because they just think it's just peachy keen that, people are getting slaughtered in the streets and stores are being looted, and you can't say anything about it. So I don't know who I want to condemn more, but you've got a good point there. I mean, in the face of injustice, people who stand silent are to be condemned, and those are Republicans, aren't they?
John, I went to Arizona in February. I spent the month of February down in Arizona. And we were riding high. We were in tall cotton. In other words, this country was absolutely at its best. We were absolutely taking care of problems. The stock market, everybody was looking great. We had a great economy. And now, in just 3 months, we've seen nothing but devastation and disaster and mayhem and evil and sinister, deadly left people that want to go up to somebody and say, you either get on your knees and apologize for being white and white privilege or else. I can't believe this in 3 months.
Well, anytime there's a little chink in the armor, there are a bunch of people ready to pounce on it. There are a lot of forces out there that can't wait for something bad to happen so that they can politicize it. And that's what we've got. We've got armies of people ready to politicize. I'd love to know, by the way, and I think the Attorney General is going to get to this, I think this guy's a rock-solid guy, this Barr. And I think he's going to find out if there is evidence about, and there should be, about Antifa coordinating these things. This stuff did not just happen by accident. And you go back to Black Lives Matter several years ago when people are parading and saying, pigs in a blanket frying like bacon.
Yeah.
Now, let me first say that that's a very inconsistent statement because, as we all know, pigs in a blanket are sausage and frying like bacon. So you pick your bacon or your sausage, but don't mix your metaphors there. But anyway, they were basically saying that policemen should be shot. Okay? Was there any outcry about that? No. And who was supporting them? And now what's happened in the wake of a lot of these lootings and these riots, people are contributing a lot of money to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, I suppose it is. Now, maybe they've reformed. Maybe there's a good wing to Black Lives Matter. I don't know enough about it. Antifa is more in my crosshairs right now. We know these guys are bad. We know there is... that they're basically there to foment harm and destruction. And I hope we get to the bottom of who it is that's doing this within Antifa.
Let me ask you this, though, John, and you've been there and done that. I mean, you've been a lawyer involved in criminal and civil cases. You know what's going on. We got to stop this insurgency. We have to put an end to the looting and the burning and the beatings. I mean, I was sickened when I watched that husband and wife store owner back in New Jersey, I believe it was, try to protect their business, and these looters and these rioters came up with 2x4s and beat the wife down to the ground unconscious and then went after the husband. No law, and everybody gets away scot-free. John, this is absolutely insane.
Well, I'll tell you, we went through a period somewhat like this in the late 60s where there are all these problems. There are a lot of terrorist groups. I helped prosecute some of these terrorist groups back in the early 70s. But there's a difference. Back then, there was not as much widespread support for violence. I mean, people were, drew the distinction between violence and nonviolent protest. And so it wasn't hard to get a jury, even in San Francisco, to convict people. Now, we have, with the last 50 years of very much leftist orientation on college campuses and sort of this cancel culture, I don't know. I think we've gone too far. We used to be a liberal society, and a good conservative was trying to, promote liberal values, not in a conservative way, but promote liberal values of free speech, free markets, those liberal values. Today, we've gone so far toward the so-called progressive side, which is not liberal at all. it's into authoritarianism, and it's into really, any against all the principles on which the country was founded. Not to sound too corny here, but that's where we are now, and I think the amount of support or non-opposition to this looting, and that's what bothers me. You've got the looters there, but what about the people who are not speaking up?
Yeah.
What about this? I don't get it.
John, let me ask you this.
You'll get fired if you speak. That's the other thing. If you speak up, you get fired.
Yeah, really. John, let me ask you this, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. All of a sudden, with my Solomonistic ways, I had the power to appoint you as president during these riots across the United States at major cities, be it Chicago, L.A., Newark, New Jersey. It doesn't make any difference where. What would you have done, and how would you have stopped this, or would you?
Well, that's a really, really good question, because you get into this federal-state divide. I mean, the federal troops shouldn't be used unless it's last resort or what have you. Now, it would have been best. What I would have done, number one, is tried to use the bully pulpit to urge every mayor to pull out full police presence to put a perimeter in and stop any rioting before it began. The second thing I would have done would have been something a little softer. The first thing I would have done as president is to have a candlelight vigil outside the White House and to bring in black leaders and white leaders from around the country to talk about George Floyd. I think it was a significant enough event that we needed an expression that everyone was against this killing. Everyone was against it, and let's all get together and do something about it. So there could have been that moment, and I'm not criticizing President Trump for not doing it, but it would have been something in hindsight that would have been a good idea. And then the second thing is, while offering sympathy, as it should be for George Floyd's death, and also a renewed pledge to help out with police training and perhaps give more money to the police, not less, then the second aspect would be let's establish perimeters in these cities, and I would urge the mayors to do something about it, and with the caveat that if you didn't, I would bring in federal troops. So tell people in advance that you're going to bring in federal troops if your police can't handle it. Because remember, our country was founded under the present Constitution. I don't want to say the country was founded. The Constitution was founded on the need to put down civil insurrection. We had the Constitution because of Shays' Rebellion, which we could not put down under the Articles of Confederation. We had no federal militia. And so then when we had the Whiskey Rebellion after the Constitution was signed, now George Washington could come up with his troops and put that sucker down. And that's what he did. He put down the Whiskey Rebellion. So it's a tale of two rebellions. So federal intervention is, our country was founded, our Constitution was founded on that. And presidents have used it ever since when there's been a civil insurrection. So yes, I think you got to let everybody know in advance. And then of course the problem you've got is you've got to use the bully pulpit, I suppose, also to say that the media that doesn't support this is supporting looting and rioting, and try to put it on them that if they don't support this, I am stunned that General Mattis thinks he's a constitutional scholar now, and that it's somehow against the Constitution to suggest bringing out troops to quell civil looting and rioting.
Yeah.
And loss of life. There's a lot of people been killed because of this. I think, the situation got out of control is really what it was, and it got psychologically out of control as well as physically out of control. So now, in hindsight, could we have prevented all this? Only with action by the mayors, I think. Look at Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. What did she do? Nothing.
Yeah. John, I'm going to ask you this question. Let me phrase it. But right now I'm seeing a situation, and you kind of alluded to it in the opening remarks, but I'm seeing a destruction and a destroying of the First Amendment in this country, free speech. And I'm also seeing a forcing of bowing down and capitulating to certain power groups that consider themselves in power, like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And when the Democrats, led by Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and others, bowed and kowtowed to these groups, and then, like I alluded to earlier, an Antifa member cornering a woman that was a jogger and said, bow down and apologize for being white and apologize for white privilege, I am so afraid. I am so afraid, John, I will not bow to any human being, you or anybody else, ever. I only bow to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But to have this kind of an atmosphere starting in the United States, that is scary.
Well, I hate Hitler analogies. Unfortunately, they're becoming very close to reality here. I mean, if you didn't bow down to Hitler's Reich, the Brown Church would come out and beat you up. And, we're sort of there today, aren't we?
Well, we are, but how do we get past this? I see this as a growing cancer. Am I wrong?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Right on. How do we stop it? And I think the only way to do it, and that's why I wrote my book. In all seriousness, it wasn't to make money. God knows I lost it by not actually doing legal work while I wrote it. But we need a stronger voice in the media for solid values, for solid democratic values of free markets, free speech, and law and order. And we do not have that in our media. We have a very much of a partisan, deceitful mainstream media. And unless the citizens shame them and say, look, we demand more from you, we're still going to get this. Remember, none of what you and I are talking about today could have transpired without a media that was complicit in this whole thing. Where is our national media, other than maybe some good commentators on Fox, where is our national media in condemning this? You do not find it. It's really just shocking to me that you can have all this and nobody's even raising their voice and saying it's bad. Just say it's bad. But no, try to find that. Try to find somewhere on CNN where anyone has said that looting and rioting is bad. That's kind of an offhand remark, like, well, okay, we kind of don't like riot and looting, but gosh, after all, George Floyd died, and we understand, we're sympathetic to these people that are doing this. People are going into the stores to loot, mainly to get free stuff. They're not doing it because of really George Floyd. George Floyd is an excuse. And what's happening is very, very good, hard-working people in the minority community are really going to get hurt by this. Stores are going to move out of the inner city more so than had been in the past. Minority-owned businesses have been hurt. You're not going to find an insurer that's going to insure any property in any of these areas where there might be a future riot. Would you do it if you're an insurer? No. So now the black community, and it's not really the black community. I say it's the people in the media, that are the elite people in the Northeast, are really championing this whole thing. And if there's a new form of redlining for insurance companies and banks in these areas, would you loan money to a business there? Would you insure a business there? The minority community is going to be hurt tremendously in these urban centers, and people are not brave enough to say something about it. Let's help our minority community. And meanwhile, all the progress we made, Trump put in his enterprise zones. Things seem to be thriving in a lot of urban areas. Nobody would give the guy credit. Of course, you can't give Trump any credit for anything. So it's just, and so I get back to my problem, Zeb. It's our communications, it's our media, it's the way people in essence are. They take their cues from people in authority.
Absolutely,
and they're not getting the right cues.
Absolutely. You are one of my favorite guests, John O'Connor, author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. John, you're going to get another call to come back soon. God bless you, man, and thank you very much.
Hey, I love talking to you. It's been a blast. Let's continue this, and maybe we can get something getting going here, Zeb.
I hope so, John. God bless you. Thank you so much. Really enjoy having that man on my program, John O'Connor, and look for his book. He's just one of the best and really knowledgeable guests on this program. Holy moly, we got to tell everybody about a big community auction. It's going to be this Saturday, 11 o'clock. They're going to bring down the gavel at the Twin Falls County Fairgrounds in Filer. It's an open consignment auction, and they're taking consignments today, starting today. The number to call, Joe Bennett, my good old buddy Joe Bennett, 539-0111. Easy to remember, 539-0111. And they're taking cars, pickups, trailers, tractors, shop tools, lawn and garden items. Oh my, no junk, good stuff. No junk, good stuff. And they're going to be taking the items today, tomorrow, and Friday. So don't forget, community auction at the Twin Falls County Fairgrounds this Saturday, managed by the Bennett Boys Auction Service. No sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys, they sell them all. Want to remind you, too, Father's Day is right around the corner. There, peek around the corner. There it is. There's Father's Day. And I want to remind you that take Dad into Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, and just say, Dad, the store's yours. What do you want? Well, I don't mean the whole store, but, get him a nice recliner or a comfy chair, or maybe he hasn't been having a good night's sleep and they need a new mattress. Well, they've got all of this and so much more at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Please stop in and see Jeff and the crew today. They will help you. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 10 to 5 at 459 Overland in Burley. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Now back over to our main studio. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you much. Don't forget, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair is for sale, and this might be your business opportunity. It's for sale. That's right, 635 21st Street in Heyburn. The number to call to find out more information, 878-4991. I'll repeat that, 878-4991. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, turnkey business operation. It's ready. Beautiful shop, all the equipment, and Doug will also train the new buyer of the business. Boy, you can't beat that. You better call him today. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Heyburn. For sale, a great business opportunity, 878-4991. Ladies and gentlemen, of all the guests that I have on my program, there are many, many returns and repeats on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, and this man is one of them. I have the utmost respect for his ability to understand politics and what's going on with current events, and he's the author of many books, the latest being called Real World Socialism, and I want you to really pay attention to what he has to say. Dr. Gerard Lamero, God bless you. Good morning.
Hi, it's great to be with you.
I hope all is well in Dr. Lamero's world.
It is. I'm busy with this election and with all the stresses the country's going under. I have to keep track of things and try to talk about them, and so there's a lot to keep track of.
Dr. Lamero, I'm not going to waste any time. I just want to go right into the subject matter, and I'm going to say this, and feel free to correct me in any way, shape, or form. In February, we were riding in high grass. I mean, everything was going good. The economy, the stock market, everything looked rosy. And then, bang, we get hit with all the coronavirus and the shutdowns, and now a worse problem with anarchy in our streets. What is going on?
Well, I think the book, Real World Socialism, that I wrote for this election, I wrote it last year to come out in January, which it did, is all about the fight we're fighting, and that is the fight for socialism versus freedom. Socialism are people who want to have big government, make all the decisions in your life, and tell you what to do. Freedom is what our country is all about, what it was founded upon, and we have several groups in this country that are pushing for socialism. And I believe that what we're seeing now with the COVID virus and also with the riots and the anarchy are both people who are trying to push socialism in the United States. I think why do they want to, for example? Well, when it comes to the election, they don't want Donald Trump reelected because he's a voice of freedom. He's done a great job, and they want to get rid of him. They want to have socialism. They wanted to have Hillary Clinton. Now they want somebody else, but they want socialism. And let me tell you something, an important fact for people to know, and that is, in 2016, Donald Trump won the election with 8% of black American votes. Only 8%. But even at that, that was more than most Republicans got in the past. John McCain only got 4%. Other Republicans may have gotten less. Almost 100% of black Americans in the past have voted for Democrat presidential candidates. That's just the way it is. But let me tell you what's happening today. The latest Rasmussen poll shows that black Americans now support Trump 40% of the time. If Donald Trump gets 33% or more, he is going to, of the black vote American votes, he's going to easily win re-election. The Democrats, I think, are trying to create a racial crisis so that the black folks will come back on their side and say they're the only ones who can save them from those terrible, terrible Republicans, which is a lot of baloney, of course.
Dr. Lamero, when you study this every day, and I know you do, and you look at the battleground states of Michigan that show in the polls supposedly that Joe Biden has a 14 or 15 percentage lead, Wisconsin a lead, other states a lead, and I'm sitting here going, how in the world, in any sane matter, could Joe Biden be leading anything except for maybe the vote for dog catcher?
Well, I'll tell you, if you believe those polls, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I don't believe those polls for 1 minute, and I've looked at the backgrounds of the polls. Anytime they put out the background, I study it and take a look at it to see what I think of the poll. And let me tell you, there are just a whole host of reasons why those numbers are inaccurate. I'll start with one example. A lot of the recent polls have been of Americans in general or registered voters. Do you know what? Only 70% of registered voters vote. Turns out likely voters is the statistic people should use if you're going to do a scientific poll, because they're the ones that really show up. Lots of people will say they're going to vote this way or that way, and when they don't vote, their poll numbers don't matter. And I remember talking on the radio in October 2016, a month before Trump got elected, and I remember a big poll that day said that Hillary Clinton at the time was ahead by 18 percentage points. They were saying going into the Las Vegas debate, there's no point in Trump having the debate. He's lost the election. And I said, baloney. Donald Trump is our next president because my models say that he is, and I think the models are a lot more accurate than the polls. So I'd forget the Michigan, Wisconsin, some of those other polls. I think they're wrong.
You know, I absolutely agree with you, and I vividly remember you on my program saying such that you just mentioned a moment ago. Let me ask you this, though. When you look at this presidential election coming up in November, and you look at the twists and the turns and the illegalities and all the animosity against whites and animosity against our government, are you still holding true that Donald Trump will win in November?
Yeah, not only is he going to win, he's going to win big. This looks like a landslide year. This is going to be a historic election. Let me tell you why. The base of Donald Trump is strong. They want him. They want him badly as president again. But what's happened is a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents are saying, we don't like the way the Democrats are trying to run this country. We don't like defunding the police. We don't want to be without a police force when we have an emergency. We don't want to see rioting in the streets. We don't like the fact that Democrats are allowing rioting to take place in the first place. And people are getting madder and madder. Let me give you one example of one voter that's very typical. He said this week, and I quote more or less, he said, you know what, I have never voted in an election before, but I'm voting for Trump this year because the Democrats just simply are hurting our country.
Let me ask you about this. We have a caller calling in, and I'm going to ask the caller to have patience for just 1 minute and give me a short answer on this. All this anarchy and chaos of looting, burning, and destruction, there had to be some organization and some big money behind it. Where do you suppose it came from?
Oh, absolutely. Well, there are a couple of sources, but basically the Antifa group is the military wing of the Democrats. They're the ones who support the Democrat leftist socialist policies. They are funded in a number of sources by some rich donors, and many people think George Soros has actually funded a lot of this problem. And whether he takes credit or some other left-wing socialist donor, that may not matter. What matters is they're spending the money and doing what they're doing, and the Democrat governors and Democrat mayors of these blue states and blue cities are not taking action. You can't let people's houses and homes and businesses burn down. That's absurd. That's not America. You've got to protect your citizens. They have a constitutional duty. They've sworn on the Bible to protect the Constitution and the American people, and they are really turning Democrats and independents really red with rage.
Absolutely. We have a caller with a question or a comment. Quickly, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Well, to think that these polls would be right is absurd. And I think that the desperation level is, these, obviously, they're willing, the left, the socialists, they're willing to do anything to get rid of Trump. Anything. And including take huge risks. These governors have exposed themselves as the terrible people that they really are, and I know that there's tons of people across this nation who see through this, and the rest of them probably won't show up to vote anyway because they're really nothing more than emotional, and it just depends on what day that is, whether or not they decide to care or not care. I'll hang it up.
Respond to the caller, please, Doctor, if you would.
Well, I think he's right. I think there's no question that the folks who believe in the freedom and the Constitution are out there. They're going to fight for this country by voting to get the Democrats out of office. I think a lot of governors are going to lose. I think we're talking about Democrat governors and Democrat city mayors. They've been in charge of the city for years. If there's any problems, they take responsibility for them. If they don't like a police force or they didn't give them enough training, and there may be a couple of bad apples out there, but let's face it, 99.9% of the police are wonderful people who put their lives on the line every day to protect us citizens. And I think the folks on the left, I think a lot of them are abandoning the Democrats because they've gotten too extreme, and most Americans do not want to become socialists or communists. And that's apparently what the Democrats want. They're pushing socialism and communism.
Let's talk a little bit more about about that situation with the police. You know as well as I do that there is a squeaky wheel out there that absolutely needs some oil, and that happens to be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She has taken it upon herself to lead the charge to have cities defund and dismantle their police forces, and she was bragging as late as yesterday afternoon that over 20 cities in the United States are considering a defunding of police. This is idiocy and total incompetency. How do we stop this?
At the voting booth, the American people have to see that this election is about, do we have socialism or do we have freedom? And most Americans do not want socialism. They're going to vote against it. I think it's going to be a historic election. I think Trump is going to win the White House again by a large majority. I think along with him, we're going to take the House back. When I say we, I'm talking about conservative Americans who support the Constitution are going to take the House back. They have done nothing in the last 2 years. And we're going to take the Senate with a few extra seats that are conservative. In addition, you're going to see mayors lose their jobs. People like de Blasio in New York that let the city burn in New York. Wonderful city, lots of sightseeing things to go to there, and he let it burn. And he was booed off the stage at a recent get-together, and he was booed off the stage. I think a lot of Democrat mayors are going to lose, and I think a lot of Democrat governors are going to lose, and I think the Democratic Party, as I've said many times before, I've been predicting it coming in next year, the Democratic Party will have lost so many seats, they close down.
You know, Dr. Lamero, you've talked to me many, many times, and I'm very concerned about the atmosphere and the attitude that's going on in this country, where yesterday we saw 2 cases of where these rioters smashed, burned, and destroyed statues of Christopher Columbus, and then down in Texas, they demanded that the statue for the Texas Rangers be dismantled and torn down. Everything with our past they want to tear away and throw away. What are your thoughts on this?
We have to stand up for what we believe in. We believe that that's our history, and it's part of our history, and it's good. We have a good history overall. We need to stand up for what we believe in, and you stand up at the ballot box, and if it's a mayor who takes down a statue that is, you know, of George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or somebody else, then I say it's time to get rid of that mayor.
I couldn't agree more.
They're not doing what we want, and they don't support our country, and they don't support our Constitution, and they want to change us into a socialist country. I say it's time for them to go.
You know, I'll go into this subject, and I'm going to go into it very carefully because I get enough hate mail as it is, but I'm going to be blunt. I see a problem in this country that I think force is going to have to be necessitated, and I think good is going to have to defeat evil. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it can be done at the ballot box. I really do, and I think it has been happening. I think the American people, that's the reason they elected Donald Trump. They were sick of the deep state and the people in Washington ignoring the people's will. And I think that's what we're going to have this year. I hope it doesn't come down to a civil war. It did 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. And by the way, similar kinds of issues back then. You know, you had the Democrats against the Republicans back then, too.
Yeah.
And the Democrats were segregation.
Over at the main studio, Sean, I got a little bit of feedback coming down the line in my headset. If you could help me, please. Last thought for this morning, Dr. Lamero, and that's Joe Biden. I mean, when you look at this man and his personality and his character makeup and really the degeneration that we've seen on the television cameras for the last 5-6 months, you have said that you think that he's going to be replaced, and I'm looking at possibly his VP choices, to which they say have been narrowed down to, and this scares me, Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris. What are your thoughts in general about the supposed leadership of the Democratic Party?
Well, I think if they can only pick a dinosaur like Joe Biden, who stumbles over words, he has a hard time putting 2 sentences together that make any sense and that are true. I think he'd be a bad choice. I think they know he's going to be a bad choice, and I think they'll replace him before the campaign gets started. As far as who they replace him with or who his vice presidential nominees could be if he does get the nomination, I don't think it matters, because I think they're all socialists, and that's what they're pushing. They're pushing Medicare for all. That means state-run, socialized medicine. They're talking about getting rid of our energy industry. They're talking about getting rid of cattle. They're talking about getting rid of hamburger. They're against that. I mean, they're against everything. They're against jet plane travel. I mean, you just got to go back to stagecoaches, I guess.
Dr. Lamero,
these people are socialists, and I think the American people are going to reject them soundly in this next election.
I can certainly pray for that. Dr. Lamero, final thoughts. If you were to sit in a meeting this morning with President Donald Trump, 5 months away from this election, what would you say is advice and guidance for him leading up to the vote on November 3rd?
Just stand up for what you believe in, because your principles are aligned with the American people. The Democrats are not. And point it out. Let them know at every rally that you stand for the Constitution, you stand for freedom, you stand for morality in government, and you know what? And you stand for the police and law and order. They're going to support you, and they're going to get rid of Democrats left and right, and you're going to help them do it.
His new book is called Real World Socialism. I have it. I've read it twice, and I absolutely advise everybody to get a copy of it. And the man is Dr. Gerard Lamero, a dear friend of this program. God bless you, sir. Take care, and come back soon.
I will, and God bless you, and God bless your entire audience.
Thank you very much. I really admire that man and his knowledge about politics. Thank you very much. I want to talk to you just a little bit here. I'm, as usual, running a little bit late. I want to talk to you about Edith's Cafe. Oh, my goodness. They're located at 144 East Highway 81 in Burley. Number to call. Remember, they do catering. 878-2248. Oh, they're almost back to complete normal, and they've had construction in the front of the restaurant is almost done to better serve you. I'm telling you, great food, great menu choices, nice people. I'm looking through the menu and I'm drooling all over the microphone. I mean, all the different steaks and sandwiches and daily specials, and then you get to the desserts. Bingo! Peach cobbler a la mode. I love it. You're going to love the food and the folks over at Edith's Cafe, 144 East Highway 81 in Burley. And don't forget the number 878-2248. I think we better get a weather forecast on here real quick before yours truly runs completely out of time. And the weather brought to you by Scarro's Meats, Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. They welcome walk-in traffic, so come on over and buy the best of meats at Scarro's Meats. Don't forget, go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com, or give them a call at 324-7657. Scarrow's Meats with Don Scarrow and his crew over in Jerome. It is absolutely delicious. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We'll be warming up for the next couple of days and cooling off by the weekend. Here's a look at your weather forecast. For today, we are expecting sunny skies, a little bit of a breeze, and a high of 78. Tonight, beautifully clear skies with a low of 49. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 87. Winds are going to be picking up out of the east-northeast at about 10 miles an hour. Winds could gust as high as 23 miles an hour by Thursday night. Partly cloudy skies with a low of 56. Friday, partly sunny and 90. More clouds rolling in for Friday night with a low of 56. Then by Saturday, partly sunny skies, 74. By Sunday, mostly sunny, 68. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Range.
Gina, thank you. And I'll tell you what, they have got all kinds of pork chops and hams and all the different flavors of bacon, all of this and more over at Scarrow's Meats. I'm telling you, you've got a family gathering or maybe a picnic on the mend. I'll tell you what, you better get a hold of them today. Woo-hoo. And all the bratwurst. You got to have their bratwurst. They're delicious. Scarrow's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Absolutely. Tomorrow on the program, we've got a lot of interesting guests and different segments, but I want to urge you, in the first hour tomorrow at 8:30, we are going to have Cassia County Sheriff Jay Heward on the program, and we're going to be talking about local law enforcement. And we had a week ago Minidoka County Sheriff Eric Snar on the program, and had an opportunity to really ask about what's going on a local basis and a state basis and a regional basis. And Jay's going to answer the same type of questions tomorrow, and I think I urge you to tune in and listen to Cassia County Sheriff Jay Heward. I appreciate him taking the time to come on the program tomorrow, along with our chamber report, and I've got some other very interesting guests, our business salute, Cassia County School Days, all of this tomorrow on Zeb at the Ranch. We're about ready to wrap it up and put it back in the saddlebag and be back here tomorrow morning at 8:06 right here on KBAR, and then also streaming all over the world on ZebBell.com. Don't forget that. We've got listeners literally calling in from all over the world, and we urge you to remember the way things were are the way things ought to be. And the four words that mean the most to us, and I'm not going to change, in God we trust. I hope you and your family have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay well. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 8:06.